Elizabeth Janice Pearl, and I'm the alumni director here. And Bryn and Elizabeth, do you guys want to introduce yourselves real fast before we welcome
Hi,
Vivian?
everyone. My name is Bryn Lemon. I'm the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement and Scholarships in our office in Goleta for UCEAP. And my colleague Elizabeth will introduce herself now.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Holtz, and I am the Scholarship and Alumni Engagement Coordinator for UCAP. Thank you all for joining us today.
We will have, a brief presentation and then a slideshow, and there will be time for Q&A at the end, but at any time, feel free to enter questions into the chat and we'll have those ready to go. But now I'd like to turn it over to Vivian Lee Niatre.
Hi, everybody. I'm the Associate Vice Provost and Executive Director of UCEAP, and this is one of my favorite events of the year. And not only because we get to hear from a distinguished alum, but also because we get to celebrate Linda Duttenhaver and her contributions to UCEAP. Linda participated in the UCEAP year-long program in Bordeaux in France from 1975 to 76. She was studying French at UCSB at the time. 30 years later, after that transformative experience, Linda established the Duttenhaver Scholarships in 2005-06. And these scholarships currently provide $5,000 for year-long study in any country. And why this is important is that only 6% of UCEAP students are able to spend a full year abroad, often because of the opportunity costs. They're not working while they're abroad, missing other opportunities to fund their education. And so Linda's generosity makes that year-long opportunity more accessible to students with high financial need. And as if that weren't enough, she then established the Paul Duttenhaver Extension Scholarships in 2014-15 in memory of her late husband, Paul. The Duttenhaver Extension Scholarships currently provide $2,500 for students who initially study abroad for a quarter or a semester and then realize the value of staying longer, see that they can do it, and then choose to extend to the full year. So in every way, Linda is really enhancing the experience of these students by enabling them to spend considerable time at their study abroad location. Since 2005, Linda has donated over $4 million in support of nearly 1,000 year-long and extension scholarships. And the students who receive these scholarships have come from all 9 undergraduate UC campuses, and they have studied abroad in more than 30 countries. So Linda's year-long experience in France has translated into nearly 1,000 year-long experiences across the globe. In 2014, UCEAP established its Outstanding Alumni Awards, and we name the highest honor that we bestow after Linda Duttenhaver. So this is the Linda Duttenhaver Distinguished Alumni Award. And this is now the 10th year that we are celebrating these awards. So at this time, I'd like to ask Linda to share a few comments on her time abroad and to say a bit about the impact that that experience has had on her career in high-tech public relations and commercial real estate. So Linda, thank you, and turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Vivian. What a beautiful introduction. And God, it practically brought me to tears. And we were commenting before that, you do a little bit every year, and it's next thing you know, it's 20 years, and next thing you know, it's $4 million. It's astonishing even to me. And I like to make the comment that I never had any kids, but I have thousands of kids. All of these students, I feel like I've helped their lives, and it's a very gratifying feeling, and I'm so pleased to do it, and so wonderful to work with such a team like you and Elizabeth and Bryn and all the rest of you, all your contributions to making this program be successful. It's not only the money, it's everybody working together as a team to make it great for the kids. So thank you all as much as I appreciate you thanking me. So I was asked to talk a little bit about why I set these up, and of course, you've already heard that I had that year experience, and that certainly changed my life. When I first even got the courage to apply for these scholarships, I was a timid person and, you know, I hadn't really had a lot of international experience and I was kind of shy. And boy, it took a lot of courage for me to apply. It really did. And then when I got accepted, and I'm sure you all can attest to this when you see the students, there's excitement and there's fear and there's anxiety. And of course, remember in my era, there was no internet, there was no cell phone, there was no, you know, it was very expensive to make international phone calls. So you were really on your own. And I was afraid, I think everybody was, but boy, I just went and did it. And of course, it completely changed my life. I left as this timid young woman and I came back as someone with a great deal of self-assurance, a more global view of the world, ability to handle problems when they came, you know, whether it was, remember, there were no ATMs then. I had to open a bank account and have money to live on. When I got the flu, I had to go to a doctor and describe my symptoms. You know, when I needed a place to live, I had to find, I wound up living in the home of a lovely woman, a widow who had an extra room, but she didn't speak any English. And, you know, I didn't have the comfort of my parents or peers or the dorms to help me through. And that, while it's always tough in a way, it's a challenge, it's also makes you a much stronger person, much more resilient. And when you come back, you realize, boy, if I could do that, I can do almost anything. And that really served me well through, you know, the rest of my life in terms of my public relations career, because public relations is communications, right? And what is communication is language. And when you learn a foreign language, you become much more acutely aware of your own language and the subtleties of it and vocabulary. And so all of that really played into it as well. And then in real estate, it's a lot of negotiation. And again, that all plays back to communication. So I know I'm preaching to the choir for a lot of you guys, but it's really it's a life changer for every single person that I've ever spoken to, and the letters that I get back from the students, it just they come back completely different people and for the better. And so me having had that experience, when I got into a position where I was able to give back, you look at your past and say, what changed me? What makes a difference? And that was where I said, this is when I want to bring this forward to those who might not have that. And I get these wonderful letters and postcards and notes from these kids saying, one in particular, this was years ago, I'll never forget it. It's a young man who said, I grew up in a trailer and I never would have dreamed that I could have studied abroad. And here, because of you, I could, and it changed my life. And that's the story I hear over and over and over again. Just as a little aside, I went to France for the first time in 48 years last summer. And I didn't know what status my French would be in. You know, I brushed up a little bit with Duolingo, but what I was so thrilled is how much of it remained with me and how integrated into my soul it still was all those years later. So that's another benefit that maybe they don't even know it at the time, but it plays into your life for a long time to come. So all that I hope is an answer for you as to why I did that. I always like to kind of leave with a quote or two from students, and then I'll turn it over to Elizabeth, who will tell you about Leslie. I've got 20 of them here. I'm just going to randomly pick one. I am not the same person that I was 10 months ago. The knowledge that I have gained of the world and other cultures has changed my perspective and will forever color my thoughts, decisions, and my path in life. They can say it better than I can. It's really a game changer, and I'm so proud of this program. I'm so proud of supporting. I'm so proud of all of you for being the magic behind the curtain to make it happen. So thank you a million times over. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, for all you do for UCEAP.
My pleasure.
We're so happy you're here with us today. Hello and welcome, everyone. We again are thrilled that you're here to recognize our 2024 Linda Duttenhaver Distinguished Alumni Award recipient, Leslie Gerson. I first met Leslie in 2015 in Washington, D.C. at a similar event to welcome our 2015 award recipient, Catherine Sullivan. Soon after that, Leslie introduced me to her fellow alumni from her Bordeaux 68-69 cohort, who at the time were planning their 50th reunion. And this group has been so wonderful and welcoming, and they let me join their group with open arms, and many of them are here with us today. So many of them have also become donors and volunteers, and I was so happy to be able to join them in 2018 in Bordeaux at their 50th reunion. Thank you all for letting me join you there. In 2021, Leslie co-hosted one of our most popular virtual events, a career panel for students and young alumni who are interested in a career with the State Department. And we are so thankful for Leslie and all she has done to support UCEAP students and young alumni. And we are honored to recognize her with this year's Distinguished Alumni Award. So please join me in welcoming and congratulating Leslie. Thank you. So Leslie, I think you're muted.
Okay, I think now I'm unmuted, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, all of you, for being here. And especially, I want to thank Candy Dahlstedt, who's disappeared from the screen, who actually surreptitiously nominated me for this honor. I really appreciate it, but it was completely unexpected. And I wanted to start by just mentioning that even in our group of people who have been attending the recent series of reunions that we've had, I can think of a dozen people who deserve to be nominated for something, because they've all contributed wonderful things to education, to human rights, to charitable work. You know, it's really amazing how vibrant our group has been, and I'm sure it's true for many other groups too. And I think everybody would tell you that this year changed their lives. And I'm happy to see a number of folks here that I've seen several times over the past few years at the reunions that we seem to be just wedded to keep having. Even after we're done with one, folks want to start another one. So I think that's great also to have friends that you reconnect with this late in life, because let's face it, we're not getting younger, but we're getting better, right? I know that that the thrust of what you want me to talk about is sort of how the year abroad changed my life. And I'm sorry for those who actually attended the interaction that we had a couple of years ago with Samantha Koo, who was just joining the Foreign Service. And by the way, I'm still in fairly regular contact with her at her posting in Mali, which is now coming to an end. And it's been full of challenges and all sorts of new experiences that I know she could never have planned for. But she is going on to Rome next, so that's her reward. But I never thought that my life was going to go in the direction that it has gone. And it's largely thanks to my year in Bordeaux. Not directly, it's not that I studied political science or that I studied government or that I had even any knowledge of when you joined the Foreign Service. But like Linda said, it gave me a courage and a self-assurance and a willingness to undertake new experiences that in the long run led me to my profession, which has been as a Foreign Service officer. And I think there are a number of people that I've met in the Foreign Service who studied with education abroad at the University of California, and I'm sure at many other places also, who made their same way toward the diplomatic service. So, you know, like almost everyone else, I arrived in Bordeaux, in France, not particularly happy, because as you will see from one of the pictures to come in the slideshow, we had to take what seemed like an interminable journey to Bordeaux on the second smallest passenger ship afloat in the world at the time. And I didn't see much at all, because I was sick as a dog in my cabin, so to speak, my below the sea level cabin. And Aline Graybo, who you can see in the middle of, at least of my screen, was one of my roommates and can attest to the fact that I was miserable the whole time, until one day toward the end of the trip, Anna Kay Ross Borg, who's I don't think on this call, dragged me up to where I could see the horizon, and I finally got some fresh air. It was an unauspicious start. Of course, the university started late because it was the fall after les événements de 68, when all of France was rioting and throwing stones and picking up, destroying parts of Paris and everywhere else, graffiti everywhere. And I can remember that when school finally started, the biggest thing that people were so excited about is that they weren't going to stand anymore when full professors walked in to give their lectures. That was sort of one of the upshots of the riots, of les événements. And of course, we all kind of chuckled because we hadn't stood for professors for forever that I'm aware of anyway. But that started off a tumultuous but wonderful year, actually, for all of us. Not only, I actually studied. It's amazing that in our reunions, I have discovered that many of the people on the screen right now did not attend their classes regularly. I was shocked to learn this. But anyway, I actually studied and did well and met a lot of French people almost right away. From day one, I had people come to my room in the dorm and say, we heard you're from the United States, we'd like to meet you, and they're friends even today. And it just got me out of a shell and kind of allowed me to be open to the opportunities that the world had that I had no idea that those opportunities were out there. Mm-hmm. When I came back, I was a teacher. I taught French and English in a high school until that fateful day when a few of my friends, we were getting together for lunch, all women, and they started talking about how the Foreign Service exam was so terrible, the written exam, and nobody could pass it, and they'd all tried and they'd all failed. And I was being a smart aleck. And they said, well, we dare you to take it. And so I did, with the view that I would join the Foreign Service for 2 years. I would go somewhere horribly exotic. I really wanted to go to Africa. Of course, as is usual in the diplomatic service, I was assigned to London, which was not exactly what I'd had in mind, but that was 45 years ago. And I am still working for the State Department, although not an overseas diplomat anymore. But I don't know, all of a sudden leaving Bordeaux, I wasn't afraid anymore of anything. And I've been in a number of places where I've been kind of afraid with the responsibility that I've been given, even for people's lives. But all of a sudden, somehow I knew that I could probably do it with help and with a lot of reflection and a lot of stamina. I could do it. And I think that anyone who joins the Foreign Service and makes a career of it for the right reasons, not for their own advancement, not because they want to be an ambassador by the time that their 4th year is over, but really wants to give back to the country in one way or another. Every one of those people deserves an award if you stick with it. It's an incredibly challenging, it can be an incredibly challenging and a frustrating, but never dull career. So I'm certainly no exception. I have not always served in the Londons of the world, but and I have spent a lot of time in Washington, Central America, the Caribbean. There are a lot of countries that failed after I left, and I try to believe that it didn't have anything to do with me, that Haiti's in the situation it's in, that that the former Yugoslavia broke up after I left. But you're always in a place at a given time, and you just have to give your all to it and take away from it everything that you can learn. I've been in civil wars. I've had to find kidnapped people. I've had to pick up after earthquakes. It's just all part of the life. And all of my colleagues do the same thing. It's not just me. So I have to thank Bordeaux for giving me French, which I fully intended to use and didn't get to use until 30 years later. But it gave me a joie de vivre, and that much I was able to keep with me from the year in Bordeaux. I really feel that I don't have a lot more to say. I think maybe people might want to ask questions, and that I can sort of illustrate a little bit more about what questions they might have that they might be interested in. But certainly it all started with Bordeaux. And
Should we go ahead and start the slideshow?
sure, if you want. Yes.
Okay. And then you can sort of walk us through those
Sure.
photos of.
Well, this is a group photo that was taken, I guess, in Bordeaux itself. I can't remember. I am not in that photo, and I never ditched one single class, so I don't know why I am not there. But that is our class, and I can see a number of people that I have seen over the years at our reunions. So that's what we all looked like, and I don't think today people are dressed in dresses when this group photo is taken. And so there we are at one of our first days at the faculty.
I especially like the gentleman hiding behind the tree in the back. Do you guys?
One of
see
the
him?
guys,
Yeah.
Robert, do you know who that is? Tim, do you know who that is?
Oh,
Would it be Skip?
Anne knows?
Anne?
Yes, it's Eugene,
Oh, it's Eugene. Okay.
who
All
is
right.
here with us.
How funny. Does he remember doing that, I wonder?
Well, apparently he's not saying anything.
Okay.
Eugene is where? He's on the call?
I saw him earlier, yes.
Oh, because I can't see all the faces, so that my screen is full.
Yeah, I was saying that's Eugene Fong. I think he's on the Zoom. Hey, Eugene. Eugene, I think I saw him.
Well, we'll let him comment if he wants
Yeah.
to. Next slide.
That is the Aurelia. And that's my ID photo from our ID cards that we all got that were exceptionally flattering. And a lot of us still have them, and Florentia has copied them all. And we've used them as IDs at some of our reunions. But the Aurelia, I think we joked that all the desserts tasted like Crisco. And there were ropes up after our first day. I think we had the ropes up due to turbulence. It was not. I'll never go on a cruise again ever. And not that this was a cruise, mind you. I mean, but I will never go on an ocean-faring ship again, ever. I never have. So.
Did anyone have a positive experience on the trip over, I wonder? And I wonder also, Linda, your group, you flew over, right?
Right.
And
right.
years before this, they also flew. So I'm not exactly sure why this year they chose to take the boat.
I think there were lectures and, orientation things. I have no idea, but it was pretty miserable.
Okay. Whoops.
Oh, there you go.
This is Linda Kozad.
Yeah, Linda Kozad.
When we were in New York on our way, because we caught the Aurelia in New York. So as all of our group knows, Linda passed away recently, a few months ago. But she married a man that she met when she was in Pau, in France, and they lived in Pau, and she's hosted us for several different reunions, and she's just a wonderful member of our team. But she and I kind of were touring around New York just before we boarded, while we were still able to walk. This is Candy, who nominated me in the front with her long hair. and Anna Kay, and
Wendy,
there's, I can't, and
think it's
Linda,
Wendy.
I guess, yeah.
Wendy Madelson Wicklund. Yeah. I mean, Grant, excuse me, her,
We're just
Right.
picnicking in the Pyrenees. Okay, Kim, this photo is for you. I had ordered a Volkswagen Beetle from the factory in Wolfsburg, Germany, and I picked it up in Paris. The big problem was that I really didn't know how to drive stick shift. And so Kim Crane, who's on the call, went up with me, and on the way back, driving from Paris to Bordeaux, I drove with her yelling, clutch, shift, practically the whole way. But by the time I got back, I knew how to drive stick shift. So that car remained with me for 26 years, and it was murdered by a Peugeot in Geneva, where I was the deputy permanent representative to the UN there in Geneva. And it got a lot of condolence cards from around the world, because everybody had come to associate that car with me, and I have all of its license plates still. So
Do you remember how much you paid for it in 1968?
$1,350.
That seems like a
That was a
lot.
lot of money.
Yeah.
So yeah, not in retrospect, I guess it did last a long time. So this is in Haiti. Haiti was a pretty difficult place to work, even though it was calm and not gang violence or nothing like that. But we never had anyone famous come to the visa section to get a visa until the day I got a phone call from the State Department telling me that Richard Burton would be arriving the next day, and they were going to read me the information that we would normally get by telegram. And he was getting a visa to perform in Private Lives, which was the last play he did, New York and Washington, with Elizabeth Taylor. And he died several months later. And at first, his colleague called me and said, can I bring the passports in? And I said, oh, Richard isn't coming in direct, himself. And he said, well, does he have to? And I said, no, these were the olden days when we just stamped a visa. And a little bit later, he called back and said, well, Mr. Burton will come, and so will I, and his wife, his last wife, Sally. And they came to this miserable building that seemed to actually, where I think most of the mosquitoes carried dengue fever, nested underneath our waiting room in a cistern. But everybody stopped working, and he spent an hour talking to the employees there and having his photo taken and everything. That's me on the right. And people say, well, what famous people have I met in the world, and where have I met them? And the most famous one I ever met was Richard Burton, and it was in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, which no one would ever think. And he was very gracious, and he also, I saw him 3 times while he was there at his hotel. He had me and my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, over for dinner 3 times. He was just charming and not at all pompous or anything. So that was a highlight for almost all of us there. Okay, you probably recognize this was President Clinton. It's the only time I have ever been or will ever be at the White House. And I went with my boss, who's standing there looking on, who's one of the greatest men I have ever met. His name is Harold Hongjo Ko, and he's a human rights advocate. He's also been dean of the Yale Law School and just published author. He was the assistant secretary for human rights, and I was his deputy. And it was just wonderful to be at the White House, because it'll never happen again. Van Cliburn played as the entertainment after dinner, and Wonder Woman was there as one of the 400 guests, which most people were more excited about Wonder Woman than about the president. But every once in a while you would get something that was really something extraordinary that would never happen, in normal life. And this was it for me. Okay, on the left, you'll see I'm in El Salvador, and I'm standing with a person who's holding some melons, and she is a friend that I met, a French friend that I met in Bordeaux during my year there. And she had come to visit me in El Salvador, which is a wonderful country, absolutely wonderful country. And there we are, sort of negotiating melons and coconuts and things like that by the side of the road. And then on the right, I'm in I think I'm on a C-130. I've spent a year with members of the military as well as other foreign affairs agencies and the State Department, traveling all over the United States, learning a lot about domestic affairs, including a lot of military excursions. And we did not jump out of this plane, but we, on another flight, we actually caught it onto an aircraft carrier, you know, got caught by the wires like you see on TV. But yeah, it's all part of the State Department's training program. Here we are, I think, at this must be the one that you, is this the one that you attended, Elizabeth, or no?
It is, yes.
Yeah, where we, one of our 50th reunion, right? Our 50th, our 50th reunion in Bordeaux. And you can see several people who are on this call. This is our latest reunion in, no, I'm sorry. Where are we here?
No, wasn't this the reunion in 2018 that Elizabeth was at?
I think this is the dinner that we had.
Yes, the dinner.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Is this not in Quebec?
No, this is not in
No,
Quebec.
in
but
Bordeaux.
It kind of looks like the restaurant that we were in Quebec.
Yeah.
That's why I got confused. But then when I looked at the people sitting at the table, I realized that it's.
You can see some of the students we
Bordeaux.
invited to the event as well.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And Joelle was there and from our study center. So that
Right,
was a lovely
right.
event. This is the one more recently.
Right. This is the more recent one. We decided to go to Quebec after
One in
two
Quebec.
visits in Bordeaux. We decided to try something that some of us drove to, and a lot of people lost their luggage on, or you know, had their luggage delayed. But anyway, here we are in part of our group.
And there's Candy is there.
There's Candy
Candy. Yeah.
right there on the left and toward the front, right? And Marita also on the call, and Robert. This is still
Oh,
Quebec.
yeah.
Still
There's
Quebec.
an
There's
homage.
Tim's on this call as well, Jane and Alan.
This was, I think, a cheese tasting. Is that what you guys had organized?
Correct.
There's a goat farm.
A goat
Yes.
farm.
That's right.
Yeah, the amazing thing is that this group has really stayed together, you know, kind of a core group that we've been able to attend a lot of these reunions, and it's really great. And this is we're in the Hotel Frontenac in Quebec City now for a dinner. There's Pat, who was on the first one on, she's right there on the far right.
That's it, I think, on our photos. So,
Yes.
well, I also wanted to mention there was a reunion here in LA, maybe in 2016.
That was
That,
kind of, was that the kickoff one?
Yeah, that was, I
First
think,
one?
the preliminary sort of planning, and
Mhm.
my colleague Stacy joined you with that one. And so again, it's been really lovely to get to know so many of you in person at these events.